Gray, I want to go back in time a little bit and go over some things that you left out. In first grade, Colt was going to State Elementary School.
Yes, sir.
And y'all were living at the farm in State.
Yes, sir.
And Colt had an individualized education program, otherwise known as an IEP, in first grade, didn't he?
As far as I know, I wasn't involved as much as far as that type of knowledge and schooling. Debbie and Marcy were really engaged with what he was doing school-wise. So he was involved in first grade and something like that, but I couldn't tell you in detail what it was for.
Okay, and an IEP is tailored for each individual child's educational disability, correct?
As far as I know,
Okay.
that's
But Colt's was actually for behavior, wasn't it?
I don't remember that.
He had a formalized behavior intervention plan.
I wasn't involved in the behavior plan.
Okay. Do you remember it saying that he hurts others, hits and kicks?
No, sir, I don't.
And you didn't know anything about it saying that the behavior occurs 2 to 3 times per day?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay. And that was in first grade?
It sounds like it was in first grade.
Okay. Do you remember Miss Lee, his first grade teacher? Does that name sound familiar?
I believe that was one of his teachers.
Okay. And you had to deal with Miss Lee about how y'all would handle his behavior at home?
Marcy typically dealt with school issues and the kids at that time, and in our marriage and their age.
Okay. So let's go to second grade. He's still in State Elementary School, and his teacher that year was Lori Moore. You remember her?
I don't remember that name, no, sir.
Okay. Did you know that, you remember that Lori Moore had behavior issues with Colt throughout second grade?
I don't. Again, I wasn't as involved as I later became with their schooling in their younger years.
So you don't think you were communicating with Lori Moore?
If I was, I can't tell you specifically what I was communicating with her about.
Okay. Do you remember that she sent an email or tried to communicate with Marcy 6 separate times about Colt's behavior?
Maybe to Marcy, but I don't recall that.
Okay. And do you remember after she couldn't get in touch with Marcy, she started emailing you specifically, and she emailed you 13 times about Colt's behavior in second grade?
No, sir, I don't remember that.
And you don't remember the conversation on October 19, 2017, where you'd say, "Hey, Miss Moore, I'm sorry I'm texting you late this afternoon," and you reference in there talking with Miss Lee last year, and y'all had a system of how you were going to handle Colt. You remember telling Miss Moore that?
If you have reference to that, then I did.
Okay.
I don't recall that, but no.
And so that was about, in her messages with you, was she talking about anger issues that Colt had? Aggression to other students? In those 13 emails she was referring to you?
Yeah, it's so long ago, I couldn't tell you about any of those emails, to be honest.
Property destruction?
No, sir.
Okay, you don't remember any of that?
If you've got record of it, then it took place, but I don't recall the specific conversations.
Okay. So y'all are at the farm, and you left the farm when Colt was in third grade?
Third or fourth grade.
Third or fourth grade. Well, he withdrew from Statham on May 22nd, 2019, which would have been the end of his third grade year.
Okay, starting at fourth.
Okay. Now Marcy testified that y'all left Statham because you were having financial troubles. That's not what you said.
Right.
Which is it?
So it's a combination of both.
Okay.
Financial troubles, just not making as much money, but also a chance to possibly sell the farm, make a profit, and want to kind of have the lake life.
Okay. And so you move up to Hall County.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you live, he goes to White Sulphur Elementary School.
That's correct.
And you live there from August to December of 2019.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And why did you leave there?
So we left there, initially there was an argument between the landlord and Marcy. She was under the use of things that we've talked about during this trial. And we were promised several things in that home, including there was a downstairs leaser that we had asked to be moved out of the house, and that guy did not break his lease or remove anything from the property. So we kind of had an agreement in the beginning that wasn't met. So we started to look around and decide if this was the right house for us.
Oh, okay. So, and that would have been Jeremy Baker was your,
I think so.
okay, and that was at 412, or excuse me, the house you were in was at 33208 Winterberry Lane?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, and isn't it true that he actually filed a dispossessory on you guys because y'all are $10,000 late in rent or behind in rent?
Right, so I found out the same way, yep. I found out the same way I found out at Traditions. Marcy was the financial person in our marriage and household. I usually went to work, made the money, and she paid the bills.
Well, here's my problem. See, I asked you why you left,
Mhm.
and you gave me an answer
Yeah,
that didn't mention you being 3 months behind in rent and being kicked out.
Well-
You said you voluntarily left because you had a disagreement.
Well,
And
I-
now you're admitting that it was.
no, that was
Let
part
him
of it.
answer the question. Just make sure that when you ask a question, he finishes answering before you.
Sure.
Let me
I
ask the question a little better.
Well,
When
I
I
can-
first asked you why you left, why didn't you mention this?
I was trying to get to that before you cut me off.
I cut you off? I could have
So
swore I let you
what,
answer all
what
of
I'm
it.
saying, when I found out we were actually late behind when I came home from work one day and all of our things were on the curb. Did not know at that point, as in Traditions, that she was not paying the rent when she told me that she was.
Okay. And then you went to Forsyth County and lived there, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the dispossessory was filed against you on March 9th of 2020, evicting you from that house.
Correct.
Okay. But you didn't mention that in your direct.
Which part? The Forsyth?
Being kicked out of Forsyth, being evicted.
I didn't think you asked me that until right then.
I didn't ask you, but he was asking you what happened, and you said, well, we decided to go down to Fitzgerald because things were slow and we wanted to see the
Sure.
quiet life. And you made it sound like you chose to go down to Fitzgerald and leave Forsyth County, but never mentioned that you were evicted from Forsyth County.
Right, we decided to break the lease was the impression I had with Marcy.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not aware of us owing anybody anything from the Forsyth County home until
Okay.
right now.
So if Marcy, when she testified that y'all are evicted from these places, that's actually the truth.
It's hard to say what Marcy is telling the truth about or not telling the
Okay.
truth about.
Okay. So you moved to Fitzgerald in February, March-ish of 2020, and Colt enrolls at Ben Hill on March 4th of 2020,
Okay?
correct? And then COVID shut down right there, right?
Yes, sir?
Basically about the same time. So fourth grade was basically an academic non-event for Colt, wasn't it?
Somewhere in there, I think we were doing the online school program through Ben Hill, I believe.
Okay. Now, in fifth grade, Colt's still at Ben Hill Elementary School,
I think so, yes,
and that
sir.
would have been the fall 20, spring 21 school year.
Okay,
Okay, and that was mostly virtual, wasn't it, because of COVID?
correct.
Okay. Now, sixth grade, fall of 2021, Colt starts Ben Hill Middle School.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And on August 20th, he searches abuse, the word abuse, and then a few hours later searches how to kill your dad.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what is happening in his life at this point where he's searching for abuse?
It's a very good question. The only search that I was made aware of until all of this started was how to kill your dad.
Okay. But abuse, that connotes emotional problems,
It can,
and it connotes he's trying to reach out, right?
I would suppose, but I didn't know about the abuse search.
Okay. And then he searches how to kill your dad.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, Colt's 11 years old at this time,
That sounds about correct, yes, sir.
and he's talking about homicide, violence, a lot of turmoil in this 11-year-old, isn't there?
Sounds like it based on the search.
Okay. Now, at that point, DFACS down in Ben Hill becomes involved with your family, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And DFACS officer or caseworker comes out to your house, I think she testified, and you were in the carport and y'all spoke about things at that point.
Yes, sir.
You were actively moving back up to Jackson County.
So at that time, I had received a job offer, and I had left Fitzgerald to take the job in Atlanta and was solo up here for a couple of months by myself.
Okay. Well, my question was, DFACS was involved with
Yep.
your family
Yes.
at that time, and you actually met a DFACS officer and talked to her about that.
I did. Yes.
Okay, and that would have been in October of 2021?
If that's what you have, yes, I
Okay.
don't know the exact dates.
Now, you move up to Jefferson around November 2021?
Correct.
Okay. And that's the Rice Creek Drive, Evan?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Now, Colt's not enrolled in school there that semester, is he?
Not right off the bat, I don't believe.
Okay, so you leave in November, but you don't enroll him in school?
I don't enroll. We, like I said, I'm working day to day. She was
Yeah.
always the insurance school enroller, things of that nature. That was just kind of the agreement we had.
Okay, so Christmas comes and goes, New Year's comes and goes, the kids aren't enrolled in school.
In seventh grade.
The October, November, or is 2021 into New Year's of 2022. Kids are not enrolled in school.
Not yet.
Okay. In fact, we go through January, all of January, kids aren't enrolled in school. So it's been, what, 2.5 months since y'all left, Fitzgerald?
Sounds like it.
Okay, still not enrolled in school.
As far as I know now.
That's kind of a recurring theme with your family, isn't it?
You say so, yes, sir.
Okay. So on February 1st of 2022, Colt is still not enrolled in school, and a DFACS referral is made on your family from Ben Hill.
In Ben Hill or in Jefferson?
Well, Ben Hill's the one that made the referral, but y'all are actually in Jefferson.
Okay, yes.
Okay. You remember Sujette Giddens testifying about
Yeah,
that?
I remember her.
Okay. So it's a week later that he starts, on February 8th, he starts West Jackson Middle School. You remember that?
Yes,
Okay. So this is finishing out his 6th grade year.
correct.
Okay. So the beginning of his 6th grade year at Ben Hill, he searches abuse and how to kill your dad, and then now he's starting a new school for the 2nd semester of 6th grade.
Okay.
And I think you testified on direct that he had no further problems in 6th grade.
Correct.
Okay. Now, do you remember that on March 10th of 2022, so about a month after he starts, he gets in-school suspension?
Yep, never heard that until the other day sitting here when it was discussed in the court.
That wasn't brought up in the bubble?
Wasn't brought up in the bubble. Had no idea he was suspended.
Okay. And it was for, let me pull that up for us. And it's 2 pages, go to the second page. It goes from bottom up. All right, so this is one of those where it kind of goes from the bottom up, I think.
Yep.
Mr. Green testified to this.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be on March 10th. He drew swastikas, FU,
Yep,
Nazi, and Hitler on a school calculator.
right. Never told of that
Okay.
by anybody in the school.
So this is the same school year about the how to kill your dad and abuse.
Correct. Which I didn't find out till months later that the searching took place with the how to kill your dad.
I mean, to you, does that look like a child that has a lot of anger issues?
I would think so, but when I found out about the how to kill your dad part of it, like I said, it was several months later. And the excuse that he gave me about that, I took him at his word, and he wasn't really lashing out at me or saying I did anything specifically wrong to him.
I was referring to this.
Oh, this, I didn't know anything about swastikas or suspension or any trouble he was actually having at this school.
Okay.
I think, if their parent was notified by email, her voicemail was full. So I wasn't on the voicemail or email, so I didn't even know this took place.
Well, let's go back to my question. This connotates a child with a
Sure.
lot of anger.
I don't know if this highlighted specifies anger.
He's not drawing Pokemon on the school calculator.
No, he's not.
He's saying FU.
Yep.
Okay. So Colt, what? He's 12 at this point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, that's March 10th. That's his first month at school.
Okay.
19 days later, he gets in school suspension again. so this is March 29th. Leaves the cafeteria without permission. Now, he was already serving silent lunch for something he did in class, and then you leave silent lunch, I think is what Mr. Green testified to. So this is 2 weeks after, 19 days after the first one, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then 2 weeks after that, he gets his third in-school suspension on April 13th. And now he's going hands-on with another student. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's recap Colt's 6th grade year. He makes inquiries about murdering a parent. Correct?
Yes, sir.
He misses almost 4 months of school. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And then gets 3 in-school suspensions in less than 3 months for property damage, disobedience, and physical violence. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Does Colt seem to be, to you, a child that is out of control?
If I had direct knowledge of any of these, then I would say yes.
So you're saying he's doing this at school, but there's no manifestations of that at your house?
At our house, no.
I'm just a good kid.
I mean, is there a perfect kid? No. But as far as hands-on with any of us or destroying property, no.
All right. Well, let's move on. Now, Colt's 12 at this point, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. Let's move to his 7th grade year. That was 6th grade. Now he's going to a new school. This is the fall of 22 into the spring of 23.
Jefferson Middle School. Yes,
Jefferson.
sir.
He's at Jefferson Middle. And I think you testified on direct that 7th grade, going well.
Started out really good.
Okay. When did it stop being really good?
About the time that, as far as Marcy's interaction and involvement with our family, took a turn for the worse, as I described. About the time she had a huge falling out with the neighbor.
That would have been around October.
Yep. And
What about September? Didn't Colt, right off the bat, when 7th grade started on September 22nd, deface 2 separate bathrooms at the school?
he did. I talked with him about that, and he said that he didn't. Yes.
Does that look like a child that's full of anger?
I don't know about anger, but destroying property. I see a child that's extremely disrespectful.
Well, it seems to me like he's lashing out. Would you agree with that?
At who?
That's a good question. So, you were talking about Marcy. October with the landlord. DFACS got involved again then, didn't they?
They did. I think they got involved, as I stated, with the landlord calling me. I was working a double shift, day and nights, kind of on the project, and she had apparently locked the kids out on Halloween night.
So I think the DFACS worker testified that they opened the case on November 2nd. Does that make sense?
It sounds timeline-wise.
Okay. So we're talking 2 months after that bathroom incident.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Marcy, Jenny, and Coley, they go back down to Fitzgerald in Ben Hill County.
Correct.
And you and Colt stay up in Jefferson.
Correct. The choice was up to them, and Marcy had to leave the premises.
Okay.
So-
Now, you mentioned that you bought the Rock River Arms rifle for Christmas, and it's going to be that Christmas, correct? Indirect?
I don't know if that's when I bought the Rock River rifle.
Didn't you say in direct that you bought it for him for Christmas? You didn't give it to him at Christmas, it was after presents were
That
over
was
with?
the Bushmaster 450.
That's a Bushmaster? What's the Rock River Arms rifle?
That is my rifle.
That's your rifle?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you said you gave it to him for Christmas because he was doing good in school.
Correct. I think I told Investigator Smith I was using it as a carrot for him to continue
Okay.
to make a strong effort.
So Christmas of 2022, he's doing good in school.
He's doing better. There was room for improvement, and I was just, again, trying to give him, something to work towards.
Do you remember the principal of Jefferson Middle School coming and testifying and saying that they were trying to email you all the time because Colt was up to double-digit absences in school?
I do remember talking with that principal several times.
Okay. And y'all had that attendance meeting, she testified, on January 11th, 2023.
Correct.
So by January 11th, which is obviously he hadn't had much school second semester, he had already had double-digit absences, so basically first semester.
Correct. And I heard in testimony that, I don't know who he was talking to, but he was telling me he was at school, but would miss the bus and stay home.
But they're sending you these emails
Correct.
and trying to get in touch with you about all his absences.
Right. And
Are you getting those?
I was getting those and doing everything I could to be involved with the school and figure out what was going on.
Okay. But Colt was doing so good in school, you got him that rifle.
He wasn't doing so good that it was a work towards kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Now, you said that bullying started midway through school year.
7th grade-ish.
Can you give me more of a month?
I can't. If you have something that you can show me to refresh memory, that would be good.
Well, you were referring to your conversations with Colt, so
Right.
I didn't know if you knew.
I don't know exactly what month or date. It was just, it was a conversation where he came home and didn't want to go back to school.
Okay.
And I'm trying to understand why, and that's where the bullying came in.
Well, taken literally, middle of the school year would have been the Christmas break. And I'm not taking you literally. So
No,
do you know if it was before or after Christmas break?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Would it have been right around Christmas break?
It could have been. I don't know exact dates or time.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this.
Sure.
How long was he talking about it before you emailed the school to address it?
We had talked about it, and it was very shortly after our conversation, and I understood what his impression of bullying was that I reached out to the school.
How long would you think that was before when he first started mentioning it until you reached out to the school?
I'm not sure.
Would it have been a month?
In the time frame, I don't know. It's been quite a while since that happened, so I can't tell you when exactly I reached out to the school.
Would it have been more than a month?
I'm not sure.
Weeks?
I'm not sure. It would have been.
Days?
It would have been relatively, after we talked about it and I understood the full totality of what bullying was to him and what was actually going on.
Well, I understand, but I'm trying to get you to narrow it down
Yeah,
a little bit more. You can't give me anything better than middle of the school year?
Yeah, I can't give you an exact day or time when that happened.
Okay. Well, we talked about earlier that when Marcy was found in November of that year,
Sure.
that Marcy was found and DFACS opened a case. Do you remember in March, Michaela Anderson coming to your house as a DFACS worker to meet with you?
I do.
Okay.
I think I stated at one point, I don't remember that, but after I saw her walk in here, I do remember talking with her.
Okay.
Several times, actually.
Okay. So she came to your house the first time on March 9th, 2023.
Yep.
And she tells you she's with DFACS.
Yep.
And she's there to monitor Colt, make sure he's doing good.
Right.
Okay. She asks you about school.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
And
sir.
you tell her, going great.
Well, I didn't tell her it was going great. I told her, we're moving through school and, he's doing good.
Okay. You didn't mention to her anything about having this attendance meeting because he'd missed double-digit school.
I didn't tell her that, no, sir.
Okay. You don't think maybe she could have helped with that with Colt?
I don't think it crossed my mind that DFACS would get involved with absentees.
Okay. And you don't mention anything about Colt being bullied at school?
With her, no, sir.
No. And this is March 9th.
Correct.
That's kind of why I was asking you to give me a time frame.
Yeah.
Because if
I
Colt's
got
getting bullied in January, why wouldn't you have told her in March?
Yeah, I understand what you're going at there, but I think by the time I talked to her, I'd been engaged with the school on the bullying issue, talking to them, meeting with them, counselors, teachers, all of that.
Okay. Would it help you? Did she tell you that she'd be checking in monthly?
She did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I think her next mint was on April 12th of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she talks to you about Colt needing counseling or therapy.
So it was a suggestion, yeah.
And you told her you didn't think he needed it.
Based on what Cole and I talked about and how I felt like the school told me they were gonna respond, that we were good. He was involved with counselors at school.
Okay. And you didn't tell her about all these outbursts he'd been having at school and the property damage?
From 6th grade,
Sure.
no, sir.
You didn't think he needed any therapy? I mean, his mom had just been taken down to Fitzgerald and had that whole drunk in the, you didn't think he needed some therapy for that?
Well, to be honest with you, this is kind of my first steps into being a single parent. So, you know, I didn't really have every, you know, thing that I needed to do and know what to do. I'm trying to figure it out as we went along, trying to do the best I could.
So this is April 12th, and again, you say, she asked about school, and you say Colt is doing good in school, and he likes going to school.
In the beginning, he did, yes, sir.
Well, no, she's asking about how things are going April 12th. That's
Okay.
kind of towards the end, isn't it?
I think so.
Okay.
Middle of school, yeah.
April 12th, that's what you consider the middle of school?
I'm sitting here trying to think, so school ends what? What do you have? June, July, August, somewhere in there?
Well,
So,
when my kids were in school, they generally got out in May.
so I thought we were out June, like beginning of June. So towards the tail end, I guess April would be. You know, outside of the bullying issues, he was, you know,
But that's not what you told her. You didn't say outside of the bullying issues,
Right.
he's doing good in school.
Right.
You said he's doing good in school and he likes school.
yeah, I mean,
Just left it out completely, the bullying.
I didn't feel like DFACS was going to do anything more than the counselor and the school administration was already doing for Colt.
Okay. So it's actually 5 days after that you first emailed the school about Colt being bullied on April 17th. Does that sound about right?
Sounds like maybe.
And the next month, May 5th, so this would have been 2.5 weeks after you sent that email about Colt being bullied at school, she visits again. Correct?
Correct. Every month.
And you say Colt is doing superb in school. Correct?
If that's what the statement says, yes.
And you still make no mention whatsoever of Colt being bullied.
Okay.
And she tells you at this time that she wants Colt to do counseling, right?
She may have.
Okay. But you didn't get him any counseling.
I did not.
Okay. Now it's 2 weeks later that Jackson County Sheriff's Office shows up at your door.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's pretty unsettling to have law enforcement show up at your door.
Obviously.
Jarring. Okay. And they told you that Colt had made threats on Discord to shoot up a school.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you look to see what Colt was doing on Discord?
I didn't know what Discord was.
Okay, so you didn't make any inquiries with Colt and actually look into his Discord?
Oh, I didn't know what Discord was. I asked Colt, sat down and had a long discussion about what Discord was. He gave me the rundown as he knew it. All I did was tell him to shut it all down.
You didn't ask him to pull it up for me, let me look at it?
I don't believe I did.
Oh, okay. But he did spend a lot of time on the computer, didn't he?
He gave me.
Okay. Now, this is less than 2 years after he searched how to kill you on a computer.
Okay.
But you didn't mention that at all to the deputies.
No, sir, I didn't. I didn't find out, like I said, until after the fact, and was really settled with the explanation I got from Colt, so no, I didn't bring it up. And to be quite honest, I was more focused on what they were there for.
Well, they were there because they had had reports that Colt threatened murder on a computer, and you had information that Colt had once searched murder on a computer.
Well, actually, they were there because someone in a chat room made a threat, not specifically Colt.
But they're there to look at Colt. and they gave you Colt's name.
Colt was on a list of what I was told of several different juveniles that were in the chat room, not just Colt.
But they came to your house because they had the name of Colt.
They did, and they were
Okay,
on
and
their,
they told you that.
and they were on their way working down the list, is what he told me, of several different names of children that were, or juveniles that were in that chat box or room or whatever, but Colt was on that list and several others were too.
They were asking you
Yep.
if Colt could have been the person that was talking about murder on a computer, and you had information, whether you got it at the time or got it later, you had information that Colt had once searched murder on a computer, and you did not share that with them, did you?
They did not tell me directly Colt.
My question, you did not share that with them, did you?
Which part?
That Colt had once searched how to kill you on a computer.
I did not.
Thank you. Now, you know at this point he has trouble controlling his temper, Colt, when they're out there talking to you.
Controlling his temper, I don't know. I know he would get frustrated
Okay. And he would get all red-faced and angry
at times.
at times. And you actually bring that up with them.
Right.
Can we pull that clip up? Can we pull it up sound?
All right, so him and his, now look, let me give you the backstory. So, can you talk to him? Yeah, absolutely. Now look, he gonna get all red-faced when you talk to him. Just calm. All right, so him and his, let me give you the backstory. So,
So you're warning the police officers before they see Colt.
Right.
Calm.
Right.
Colt's a little volatile at this point, isn't it?
Not volatile. It's just more, and I don't know if embarrassment's the right word. He just gets flustered. His face gets really red, and to be honest, when he gets to that level, he tends to just shut down and not talk at all.
In fact, I think you said in there that he gets flustered under pressure and doesn't think straight.
Yeah, that's what I believe I said.
And you know he's interested in school shootings at this point.
I don't think I do know that.
You don't remember telling them that you guys talk about this a lot?
We talk about what we see on the news.
About school shootings?
Any shooting.
Okay. Now, you also know he has access to firearms at this point.
Correct.
In fact, you say, I'm going to be mad as hell if he did threaten the shooting, and then all the guns will go away. They won't be accessible to him. Right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, they asked you to restrict Colt's access to guns.
They asked to make sure that they're not laying about the house and freely available.
Freely available. Because you don't want dangerous kids having access to dangerous instruments, do you?
That's correct.
I mean, that's just reasonable, right?
Yep.
Now, you believed this tip enough at the time that you took Colt's computer away.
Correct.
Okay. So they're going down this list. They're not sure it's Colt. We're not sure. But you believed enough you actually took his computer away from him.
Until I could get a follow-up call the next day from that sheriff verifying that Colt had nothing to do with it.
How long was the computer taken away?
I'm not sure how long I took it away.
I think you talked about it to Jason Smith. Let's look and see what those things say.
I have kids. Yep. And again, you say I didn't work in law enforcement. To me, as a regular dad, if the law enforcement comes, no matter who they are, law enforcement comes to my house and tells me that my son was in a room where they were talking about committing a school shooting, that is going to be a giant red flag.
Oh, and it was.
No matter what my kid says, the kid can lie, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And it was.
That's a huge red flag.
Yep. It was, and I talked to that officer.
I'm probably you're not gonna have a computer, you're not gonna have a phone, you're not gonna be on the internet. Is that what happened with you guys?
It was done, no.
You took his computer?
Yeah, we just, like,
Right, just like when you took his guns after you cut stuff.
everybody take a break.
Right.
And when you feel like coming back and being normal, let me know, we'll talk about all this.
Right.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Till you come back being normal. You
Right.
didn't say anything to him about when they cleared him the next day. It sounds more like a longer period of time there.
Yeah, I'm not sure, you know, he was asking a time frame at that moment, and ultimately there was a lot of other things running through my mind other than how long I took his computer away at that moment.
I think I think I can bring it up again later in the conversation, see if it sheds any more light.
When did you give his computer back to him? Because he was able to go look up all this about the school shooters and stuff. When did you give his computer back to him?
In Jefferson,
Yeah.
I have no idea when I gave it back to him, because that was towards the end of school, and then we started moving.
Okay.
Okay, so it wasn't the next day, was it?
I don't think it was the next day. And then he also did have a laptop, I believe, at that time too, so.
So you take away his computer because of this threat. You take away his ability to talk about school shootings, but you don't take away his ability to commit school shootings? I mean, the gun stayed, right?
Well, the gun stayed, but at that point, I just, you know, there was no, this was Colt said to me by law enforcement. There was a lot of variables and unsure statements by the sheriff. So, you know,
So at this point, you're not sure, is it Colt? Is it not Colt? I don't know. I'm going to take away his computer,
right.
but not the guns.
Correct.
Okay. Now let's jump to September 4th of 2024. This is the day that Colt murdered 4 people at Apalachee High School. This is 16 months later. That afternoon, you are talking to GBI agent Kelsey Ward. Remember that?
I do.
She came out to your house and
Yep.
y'all met in a car.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you're talking to her, she's trying to figure out why Colt did what he did earlier that day, wasn't she?
Yes, sir.
That was the point of it.
Yep.
Okay. And she's asking about Colt's friends. Remember that?
At some point, I'm sure she did.
Okay. Now, you never mentioned, y'all talked for like an hour and a half. You never mentioned one time Agent Kelsey Ward that just 16 months earlier, Jackson County Sheriff's Office deputies came to your house and told you that Colt may have been threatening to shoot up a school on the computer. And
Yes, sir.
she's asking you for anything you can think of about why Colt would do that very same thing. And for an hour and a half, talking about Marcy and your back and everything else, you never mentioned them coming out to that house. Did you?
No, sir.
In fact, she actually, when she's talking about the friends, she asked you, did you ever have any reason to talk to him about what he did on the computer? She's specifically asking, has there ever been a reason that you would need to talk to Colt about what he did on the computer? Did she?
Is relating to Apalachee?
Relating to Colt, and that's what she's talking to you about.
Sure. I didn't feel it relevant to talk to her because I had followed up with Jackson County and was specifically told that Colt was not that person.
You didn't think it was relevant. Is that what you're telling us?
What I was told was anything from Russia to California and multiple other persons could be involved. So I
She-
didn't think at the end of the day that.
But you
Based-
didn't know it wasn't him. You just don't think it was him.
No, I was told it wasn't him. I was told I do this for a living and I believe Colt.
That's not what the Jackson County deputy said on the stand.
Well, that's what he told me on the phone, on the follow-up phone call, that's what he told me the next morning.
He never said that on the stand,
I can't,
did he?
no, he didn't say that.
Okay. And then Agent Ward asked you if Colt had ever done anything that would cause you to want to monitor who he talks to on the computer. And you say, no,
Okay?
right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why don't we play that clip?
I have to do for you.
Tell me about his friends. Like, who are the names or people that you hear, or does he?
There's nobody he has ever been like friends with.
Okay.
And now what or who he's talking to on the computer, he pretty much kind of keeps that under wraps.
Okay.
I've never had a reason to go in there and like grill him about.
He's never done anything that caused you to feel like there needs to
Correct.
be any extra
Correct.
monitor on that front.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, you do bring it up with Investigator Smith, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But that was an hour and a half into the interview, wasn't it?
Okay,
Before you first bring it up with him.
okay.
Okay. And you meet with Investigator Smith on September 5th at around 3 o'clock, right?
I'm not sure of the time.
Does that sound about right? Because you remember you took Jimmy first.
Correct.
Okay, so around 3 o'clock sound about
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Okay. And it's around noon of that day that Marcy sends you that text asking what the hell is this, and has the picture of the FBI where it says they come out to your house.
Yes, sir, I remember that text.
So at noon on the 5th, you know the world knows about it. And then in your interview, then it becomes relevant again
The world knows about,
that they come to your house.
the FBI?
Well, Jackson County for the FBI. But
Oh, yeah, not necessarily that the world knew. Marcy sent me that text. I didn't make her aware of the situation, for obvious reasons.
Okay. So on the 4th, when you're talking to Kelsey Ward, it's not relevant. On the 5th, at around noonish, you get that text from Marcy where you find out people know this now. And at 3 o'clock with Investigator Smith, an hour and a half into it, now all of a sudden it's relevant.
I don't know, relevant is the right word. I believe talking to Kelsey, we're talking a matter of hours, short time after the shooting. I'm still in a state of shock, trying to process what all happened.
Okay.
To be able to sit and recollect every single thing that has happened.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Like little things would be hard to remember.
Not little things, everything. This was I was doing my best just to just get through what questions they were asking, and it was several. It was
Let
the
me ask you
next
this.
day when I talked to Investigator Smith and had time to kind of process everything.
Well, let me ask you this. The entire conversation with Agent Ward and with Investigator Smith
Okay?
was all about Colt committing a school shooting.
Yeah, I agree.
And this is the only information you've ever had in your life up to this point about Colt and school shooting. And it's police coming to your house. And that didn't pop in your mind.
The way that I left it with Jackson County, Colt was never told to me to be the one that actually did this.
Wasn't it true you were just hiding it from them because then they would think you knew this was coming?
No, sir.
Now, let's go back. We were go back in time. I want to go through this chronologically. The sheriff's office has just come to your house, and that was May 21st, 2023, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, less than 3 weeks later, on June 9th of 2023, Michaela Anderson with defects comes back out to your house for those monthly checks on Colt, doesn't she?
Mm-hmm.
And she asks you, how's Colt's behavior been? And you say Colt's behavior's been okay. You don't mention to her that Jackson County came out to your house 2.5 weeks before.
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. And she asks you again, do you think Colt needs counseling? And you say, nope. Right?
Correct?
Okay. You also don't tell say anything to Michaela Anderson about planning to move to Barrow County, do you?
I don't think at that point I had actually found a place where we were moving at all. The overall goal originally was try to get to as close to Statham as we could. So I didn't have a dead set place yet.
Right, but that's not what I asked you. I said you didn't say anything to Michaela Anderson about planning to move to Barrow County. Did you?
No, I don't think I did. It was again, nothing set in stone.
No, you just said the final address wasn't set in stone, but you were searching for places near Statham in Barrow County. You just said that.
I did just say that.
Thank you.
There was nothing set in stone. It had to be Barrow County.
But you never said anything to her about planning to move, did you?
I did not.
And this is the woman who told you in March she would be coming to your house monthly to check on Colt.
Correct.
It was her job to do this.
Correct.
2 weeks later, you signed the lease at 896 Harrison Mill Road.
Yes, sir.
And you don't let anyone at DFAX ever know about your change of address, do you?
I don't. I think the last conversation I had with Michaela was she was satisfied with everything that was going on. That I think she worded it that I was more than helpful. Colt was polite. I was very pleasant to meet with and looked like we were on the right track. So I did not.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you remember testifying at a bond hearing here in court?
In the very beginning of all this, yes.
Okay, and you swore to tell the truth, whole truth, no truth, self God?
Yep.
You did that? Okay. Do you remember me asking you about DFAX coming out to your house, specifically about Michaela Anderson coming out to your house?
In the beginning, I do believe so. You may have asked that question.
Okay. In fact, I asked, so while you were at 954 River Mist Circle in Jefferson, a DFAX case was opened on your family in November of 2022. And your response was, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, I remember that conversation with you. And to further that conversation, you also had asked me if I had ever been arrested. And I had stated that I had not. And in fact, there had been some things 30 years ago, roughly, that had happened. There had been a lot that happened at that point. I've been, arrested. I've been in jail now for a year and a half. And so I'm trying to still process what exactly happened with my son and me being locked up for it. So if I did not remember every single detail that you were asking me at that point, that is my bad.
That's extra bad. Okay.
I did, at the end of the day, we had so many meetings with DFAX here and there, I couldn't, I wasn't sure when I met with her.
All right, well, let me say, so my next question to you was, after you said I wasn't aware of that, I asked, you don't remember them coming out to your house and interviewing you after November of 2022 into May of 2023. Now, this is November-ish or October-ish of 24 that I'm asking these questions. It's just been 2 years. And you said, DFAX never interviewed me at that time.
Yeah.
And there wasn't I don't remember or I can't recall.
Right.
You said they never interviewed me at that time.
Yeah, after 2 years, I didn't remember
Yeah.
that, honestly.
And then I asked, between November of 2022 and May of 2023, they never did a home visit and spoke with you at your home in Jefferson? And you said, no, sir. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that, yes, sir.
And then I said, in May of 2023, was there a home visit by DFAX where they told you there would be monthly home visits? And you said, no, sir, not at that location. So then I asked, well, not at that location. What location did you have contact with DFAX? And you said, I had contact with DFAX in my home recent here in Bethlehem. I received a phone call at 10:30 at night from a DFAX caseworker that gave me instructions to get in my car and come pick up my younger children. So you're referring to when Tamika Mitchum called you.
Correct.
Again, just completely leaving out the Michaela Anderson stuff.
Totally agree.
The Shonda Goolsby stuff.
Yep, there were multiple DFAX people.
Multiple. And you said, no, sir.
If you let him answer the question.
Go ahead. Sorry, there were multiple defects.
So for me to be able to try to keep track of who all and when I met them without having everything in front of me, I may have misspoke to you, but it was not in an effort to deceive you or anything. I really was just trying to process being arrested, what had happened, and I just, I couldn't remember what defects I talked to and when.
Okay. Well, I understand completely if there's multiple defects involvements, which you just said.
Sure.
Correct?
Yep.
If you have multiple defects involvements, getting confused as to which is which. I understand that. But I'm asking you, and you said, no, you only had one contact with defects, and that was at your house in Bethlehem when they called to tell you to come pick up your kids.
Most recently. Yep.
That's not confusing multiple. That's saying there's only one.
Yeah, I think I was referencing in the moment, like who I was dealing with currently.
So I actually asked you that. So this would have been after June 23rd of 2023. You said, yes, sir. And then my last question was, and you're saying that you had no contact with defects prior to that? And you said, no, sir. You sound pretty adamant, not confused.
Okay.
Let's move on to 8th grade. Now, Colt registers on August 8th, 2023 at Heyman Morris Middle School, correct?
Yes, sir.
But then he withdraws 3 days later on August 11th, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he never actually went there.
Correct.
Okay. And then he moves back to Fitzgerald with his mom,
I moved back with Debbie.
but that's where his mom is, right?
Correct.
Okay. And he never attended Heyman Morris before he went down there.
No, sir.
Did he attend school in Fitzgerald?
No, the plan was Debbie was going to sign him up for homeschooling.
Okay. But he never went to school in Fitzgerald?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And it's down there that Colt begins cutting himself.
So I found that out in a weekend trip back home after I was up in Atlanta. Yes, sir.
But that's your understanding of when it was started?
Somewhere in that time frame. Yes, sir.
Okay. And I think they show you the pictures
Yes, sir. Saw it.
of Colt's arm?
Yes, sir.
We showed those on the thing?
Yep.
Okay. And is that what they look like when you showed them to you?
He did. That's what they look like. Yep.
Okay. And were you aware of these photos on Colt's phone? Were you aware of this photo on his phone?
I don't think so. No, sir.
Okay. Do these look familiar to you, though?
Yeah, those are the ones that were on his arm.
Okay. And those are pretty substantial cuts, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
I mean, the ones from the other picture were from the September 4th, and this happened almost a year before. So
Yeah.
a year later, it's got a pretty wicked scar still.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you took that seriously, didn't you?
I took that serious enough when I went back. This happened when I was in Atlanta. When I went back home, Marcy had brought it to my attention. I asked Colt what happened, what he was doing. He said, he was just sitting in his room, kind of spacing out, did it with his pocket knife, and I took his pocket knife.
He did that spacing out?
Yeah, he said, I asked him if it was an anger issue or was there something like wrong? Was he, trying to give me the backstory? He couldn't really give me a good answer as to why he did it. I think he said something along the lines, I just did it, and I said, okay. And I took the knife he had in his room.
But you know that's a sign of depression, don't you?
I did not know that was a sign of depression, no, sir.
You didn't know that that's a cry for help?
I didn't know that was a cry for help, no, sir.
You didn't realize that's a form of violence?
A form of violence, yes, probably, but I guess, yeah, you could say it was a form of, doing something harmful to himself is the way I took it.
Yeah. And he's only 13 at this point.
Correct.
Where did he get the knife?
I had pocket knives down there, so I guess he had taken one of my pocket knives. I'm not sure. I wasn't in the home day in and day out at that point.
But you removed his knife, right?
The one he said he used.
Okay. Because can't hurt himself if you remove the instruments to hurt yourself, right?
That particular pocket knife and the answer of I don't know why I did it, then yeah.
I mean, like we said earlier, children that are dangerous shouldn't have access to dangerous things, right?
If they can't tell me why they're doing what they're doing, then yeah, I would take the pocket knife.
Yeah, it's just reasonable, right?
If you're harming yourself, yes.
Okay. Or if you're a danger to harm yourself.
Correct, but like I said, the answer was I don't know why I did it.
Okay.
Just kind of spacing out.
So you told Investigator Smith that Colt stopped cutting himself after that summer.
Yeah, that was the only issue I've ever seen where he did anything like that.
Did you ever check into that? What measures did you take to check into if he continued cutting himself?
It's as far as I knew, it stopped right then. He never made any other attempts or cut himself, to my knowledge, after that.
I understand, but what I'm asking is what steps did you take to monitor that?
I didn't monitor it because I wasn't in the home daily. I was up here, pretty much gone.
No, he was only down there for a few weeks.
Right.
After he comes back, is when you don't even know he's cutting down there, do you?
No, I didn't know he was cutting down
So
there.
you find out when he's here.
No, I find out when I went home on a weekend visit from Atlanta and saw those cuts on his arm.
And he's here at that point.
No, he's in Fitzgerald.
He's still in Fitzgerald?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How shortly after that did he come back to live with you?
I'm not sure what that time frame was.
He was only there for a few weeks.
Maybe I can't tell you exactly when he came back.
It was less than a month?
I am not sure.
Less than 2 months?
I'm not sure of the dates. I just know what happened to make me go get him.
But you don't know when that was?
No.
Okay. But, back to my original question.
Yep.
Now that he has come to live with you, shortly after you find out he's been cutting himself,
Yep.
he's in your house now,
Yes, sir.
what do you do to monitor, check up on, to make sure he's not still cutting himself?
I don't think we ever had a conversation about it. There was no further discussion from anybody else in the family that he was cutting himself. I talked to Colt a lot. We had a pool in the backyard at Harrison Mill. Saw him with his shirt off all the time playing in the pool. I didn't see any further evidence that he was cutting himself.
Okay, were you aware of this picture that was taken on April 1st, 2024?
No, this is the first time I'm actually ever seeing this picture.
Oh, okay, so you didn't know that he was cutting himself in April of 2024. He lived with you then, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
Now, let's move on. We're going back to Fitzgerald. This is October 3rd of 2023. Colt has that juvenile complaint form where he broke windows, stabbed cardboard. I think you testified about that on direct. That
Yeah.
whole incident down
Oh,
there.
yeah, yes, sir.
Okay.
After Marcy beat him over chicken nuggets, yes, sir.
Yeah. So breaking windows,
Broke a window.
stabbing things with knives.
Marcy made the claim that he cut the couch.
Okay. And he says he didn't.
He said he did.
And you just always take Colt's word for these things?
Over Marcy, yes.
Oh, okay. You don't ever check into it?
I believe my son more than I believe his mother.
Okay. Now, we're talking about more violence and improper use of a knife, correct?
As Marcy alleged.
Okay. But you have knowledge of this, these allegations, that you've been told about them.
Correct.
Okay.
Through Marcy.
Okay. And Colt comes back to live with you in Barrow County,
Correct.
and that's October 3rd, or roundish early October.
Yeah, ish.
Okay.
Yep.
Now he's not going to school at this point.
Correct.
He's not enrolled anywhere, is he?
No, sir.
Okay. So you just go to work every day, and there he is.
Correct. He's in the house.
Okay. Then on October 13th, that's when defects calls and says, come get your other two kids.
Correct.
Okay. And you drive down the next day, and now you have custody of all three kids,
That's right.
and Marcy does not.
Right.
Okay. You call the shots when it comes to the kids.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, the caseworker talks to you while you're down there,
Yes, sir.
and that's Tamika Mitchell.
Yep.
And she tells you to get these kids in school ASAP and into therapy.
Yes, sir.
Did she? Okay. And you told the caseworker that the whole family will be going to therapy.
Correct.
All right. But you don't put them in school, do you?
Initially, no, sir.
Okay. And you don't put them in therapy, do you?
Initially, no, sir.
Okay. Now, you also talked to Tamika on the phone on October 18th, so a week later, and you tell her over the phone that Colt and Jenny want to do homeschooling, but the school doesn't have room, so they have to go physically. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
That sounds like what I was talking about with her.
And she tells you to get the kids in therapy. So this is the second time she's told you to get the kids in therapy. Right?
She asked if I had them in therapy.
Okay. And you tell her that you and the kids will be going to therapy.
Yes, I tell her I'm currently trying to make that happen.
Okay. And then approximately a week and a half later is when the Barrow County defects worker comes out to your house to look at your house. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And you tell her that you have arranged counseling services for your kids and yourself at Barrow Village Ministry.
Correct. Arranged probably wasn't the right word to use with her. I was in the process of researching everything that I could as far as therapy went and family matters. Relatively new at being a single parent. So I wanted to let her know that I was not doing nothing about it. And I had researched Barrow Ministries at some point, trying to figure out what was the best avenue for us.
Okay. So you didn't want her to think you weren't doing anything.
I wasn't not doing anything.
Yeah, you were researching.
I was looking around trying to figure out what was best.
Okay. But you never pulled the trigger on any of them, did you?
Just collecting information at
Just
that point.
collecting information. So they've asked you twice to get the kids in therapy because they've been through a lot, haven't they?
They have.
And you keep telling them you're gonna.
Yep.
And one time you kind of alleged that you already had, but you didn't.
Right.
But you don't ever follow through on any of it, do you?
It's not the only thing I had to worry about while I had those kids. There was a lot I was learning on the fly, being a single parent, working full time, just trying to get my feet under me on how to do all of this by myself.
So that's a no.
That's just a fact. So if you consider it a no, then it's a no.
Did you?
No,
Ever put
I
them
did not
in
actually enroll them or myself in therapy.
Thank you. Now, they also asked about weapons, and you say that you have weapons, but they are stored and locked away out of the reach of the children.
Okay?
And again, that's not true, is it?
I don't remember saying locked away. I just remember saying they were stored and out of reach of the children.
Okay. But that's not true, is it?
The lock part, no. Stored and out of reach, yes.
Out of reach is true.
For the most part, yeah, they were out of reach of, they weren't readily available for just laying around the house.
Colt couldn't reach that shelf in your closet.
I guess that he could if he stood on something, but even I have to reach up and over to get it.
But I mean, obviously, to defects, they're concerned about weapons being accessible to the children, and you're assuring them that they're not accessible, but they are, aren't they?
Right, and I'm being forthcoming and open and letting them know I do have weapons in the house as well.
But didn't you also tell her that this was the first time you had ever had defects contact?
I don't know if I told her that or not. Like I said, there were multiple defects people I was talking
Pull that
about.
up for me. Remember she made a summary
Mm-hmm.
right there.
Yep.
See if I can find it. So down there at the bottom, the next to the bottom one, BFA, that's you, biological father, never had CPS involvement and felt appreciated that CM's helped and made it easier for the children to feel safe. So you told her you never had defects involvement, didn't you?
That's what I told her.
Isn't that eerily the same lie you said here in the courtroom at your bond hearing?
Again, this was not a lie.
I mean, this is the same year.
I mean, this was not an outright lie as in deception. There was just a lot of things going on, and I didn't recall, certain meetings with defects.
Okay. So this is October 30th of 23. The very next day, defects closes their case, don't they?
Yes.
And that's because you told them that you were getting counseling and that the kids had no access to the guns.
Told them I was working on counseling, and
That's not what she recorded.
I don't know why she recorded what she recorded. I know that I told her I was working through multiple avenues of therapy, not locked into one. I never signed anything to go specifically to a counselor. I was compiling information.
Yeah. Doing a lot of research you were. Let's go to November 4th of 2023. Marcy comes up, and that's when she keys your truck and gets arrested.
Correct.
All right. So, I mean, that's been a very stressful summer and fall for Colt, hasn't it?
It has for all of us.
I mean, it starts with Jackson County coming to the door about school shooter threats. Then it goes to him cutting himself. And then shortly thereafter, he gets the juvenile complaint for breaking the windows and cutting the couch. Then his mother, a few weeks after that, loses custody for drug use. Then a month or so after that, she gets arrested for keying the truck. He's not in school. He's not in counseling. That's a rough summer and fall, isn't it?
For all of us.
For a 13-year-old.
For a 50-year-old. For all of us.
And on November 17th, you buy him that 6-hour M400 rifle.
In November, I actually purchased the weapon for me, and was going to use that weapon as something that he and I could bond over with.
I thought it was his Christmas present.
It was not directly a Christmas present. It was something I told him he could use. I had one. We could shoot together. And at a later date, when he was of legal age, I would give him that gun.
So this was not his Christmas present?
This was a part of his Christmas. This was not a, here is your gun. The conversation was, I bought this weapon. This is one that you can use to shoot when we go to the range or hunting.
All right. Well, first off, before we get into that, you did purchase it on November 7th?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. And that is 7 months after Jackson County asked you to restrict his access to guns? Correct?
Not sure they asked me to restrict his access, just to make sure that they weren't readily available.
And 18 days after you told DFACS Colt didn't have access to guns.
Correct.
He's about to.
The gun was not for him, so it wasn't his gun.
Okay. Let's play what you told Agent Ward about it.
The weapon that he had was a AR-15, it was a 223, and it was a Sig Sauer. And that was kind of like his big Christmas present, where I said,
Well, you cut it off with what I said.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry.
Do you want to play the whole thing?
I'm not going to play an hour-and-a-half interview.
Well, that's the part where I said, this is a gun that I bought that you can use when we go to the shooting range or hunting.
Right. Well, I didn't say you weren't saying
Right.
that.
Right.
But it was his big Christmas present.
It was a part of his Christmas.
Thank you. Now, at this point, had you given the knife back to him from cutting himself?
No, I don't remember giving him a specific knife.
Okay. I mean, you took away his knife. You testified to that.
Yeah, I took away a pocket knife he had down in Fitzgerald.
Did you ever give it back to him?
I did not.
Okay. Now, Colt is 13 years old at this point. This would have been 23, Christmas 23. Yeah, he's 13 at this
Yes,
point. Okay. And you let him keep the gun in his room?
At times.
Okay. Well, right after Christmas, he got to keep it in the room.
He did.
Okay. And on December 19th, you ordered that laser sight for the rifle on Amazon.
Which one?
We can pull it up. That one there. Green laser rifle, the one that's in the pictures.
Correct. I had actually ordered that laser for my rifle when I ordered it. But yes, I did order that laser.
Now, Colt is still not in school, is he?
No, sir.
Okay. And you got the kids in October.
Correct.
And this is December.
Right.
And you haven't done anything to enroll them in school.
For 8th grade or 9th grade.
And when you got the kids in October,
Right.
till this is December, you haven't done anything to get them in school.
Yes, sir.
Did you even do any research?
I don't believe I did.
Okay. Now in January 12th, actually, Annie's the one that registers little Coley at Austin Road Elementary School.
Correct.
Okay.
Annie, myself, and Debbie were working on registration for all the kids.
Okay. In January.
I think Annie and I started talking about that maybe prior to the new year. I was needing guidance on what to do and how to do it. I've never been in the position where I had to enroll our kids. It was always, Marcy.
Did you ever think about going to the Bexar County School website?
No, I didn't. Well, because I relied on Debbie and 40 years of education, and she usually guided me through what had to happen as I became a single parent.
Oh, okay. So that's little Coley, though, on January 12th, right? That's not Jenny and Colt.
I believe so.
Okay. In fact, on January 25th, that's when Lorene sends you those emails giving you a step-by-step guide of how to get them in school, virtual school, or online. And she tells you exactly how to do it, doesn't she?
Yes,
And she even volunteers to pay for it, doesn't she?
she does.
And you don't do it, do you?
I don't do it. Jenny and I were in a conversation of did she want to do it, and she opted to want to go to public school.
Okay. So Jenny's registered on February 2nd, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this is second semester, correct?
Yes, sir.
She'd already missed the entire first semester of school, didn't she?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, on the 6th, the school emails you with a start date for Jenny and Colt, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. And you email back that Jenny's sick with a fever and will start on Thursday, right?
Sounds correct.
But Colt never attends.
He does not.
Okay. In fact, at that point on the 13th of February, you email the school and say you're going to sign Colt up for online classes at this time.
Yes, sir.
And you actually said at this time.
Yes, sir.
So on February 13th, well into the second semester, you hadn't done anything to get Colt enrolled in online classes.
No, sir. It was kind of an ongoing
Yeah.
operation.
In fact, you never sign him up for online, do you?
So I had, in talking with my sister, I had thought there was email communication back and forth that Georgia Virtual was where he was enrolled. There were access codes sent in an email, and I remember talking with Colt saying, we have you registered, I thought at the time, at Georgia Virtual, here's the access codes, and you should be good to go.
But you never did anything to get him enrolled, did you?
I physically did not do anything, no, sir.
I think you testified on direct. That was your bad.
I was needing as much help as I could get. There was a lot of, I was responsible in trying to cover a lot of things.
Now, that's on the 13th is when you tell them that Colt's not going to school.
Yep.
On the 29th, you, Colt, and Jenny go to Wilson Shoals Gun Range.
Yes, sir.
And that's a school day, right?
Maybe it was, I'm not sure.
Is school not very important to you?
It is.
Okay. Now, it's around this time that Colt's aggression is escalating, isn't it?
Maybe, I'm not sure.
You don't remember when it was?
I don't. I
You don't
mean,
remember when he starts fighting with you physically?
physically, I think I mentioned it 3 times. I don't know when the exact date of those were. I would say that aggression-wise, just more temper, kind of short-tempered, more than he would normally be.
Okay. Do you remember telling Kelsey Ward on September 4th that probably 5, 6, 7 months ago, his attitude escalated to the point where he would be like cussing and talking to me like you shouldn't talk to your parents, and he's like gone to hands-on trying to fight me?
Yeah, that's correct.
So you said 5 to 6, 7 months ago. That was in September or so.
Right.
7 months would be around February,
Right.
going into March.
Yeah.
Okay. So around this time that we're talking about.
Sounds like it.
Okay. And you told her that he went so far as to strike you in the face.
In one of our scuffles, yes, sir.
Okay. Does he
Side of the
appear
neck.
to you to start being out of control?
It was not an everyday thing. It was more based on if he didn't get his way about something or we had a disagreement. It was arguing and cussing most of the time. And we did have separate instances where, like I said, he would bull rush me.
I think when you did on direct, when you were describing the bull rush, you said you could see him kind of building up in him,
One time I could see him getting angry.
getting all worked up.
Just, not agreeing with what, I was saying, and I could tell by the tone of his voice that, it was escalating.
His anger is building up, isn't it?
It was in that moment, on that particular day.
To the point he lashed out in a violent physical way.
He just bull rushed me. Yes, sir.
Struck you in the face.
He was flailing all about it. He didn't strike me in the face. He struck me like right there. Just, I don't think he was aiming. He was just more kind of flailing around.
So where again was it?
Just right here.
So the neck,
Right.
not the face?
Right there.
Well, how would you describe that? The neck or the face?
Well, it depends on what part of the neck. Maybe bottom of my face, top of my neck. Right?
I'm asking how you would refer to that.
I would refer that to neck or face.
Okay. When you talked to Agent Ward, you referred to it as face, didn't you?
Yeah, it sounds like that's what I said to her.
In fact, you said, so we've probably had 3 or 4 of these kind of altercations where he's gotten above aggressive with me. Above aggressive. I call it a bull rush. The second to last time, he hit me in the face.
Yep, I remember telling her that.
Okay. And then I think you actually referred to this when you talked to Jason Smith the next day, the bull rushing again.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you, second time, he was kind of like flailing around and he hit me in the side of the head. I told him, don't hit me in the face ever again. Remember that?
I do.
Okay. So it was the face.
It was face.
Thank you. Now, so this is all happening the end of February going into March. March 8th of 2024, you buy that Sightmark UltraShot RSP, correct?
The site?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was for Colt's gun.
That was,
$150.
that was for the SIG, yes, sir.
Okay. It was found in Colt's closet. The box was.
Mhm.
Okay. And 3 weeks later, on March 28th, 2024, you buy him that bungee sling.
I actually bought the bungee sling for my rifle.
But it was Colt take it for his?
I saw it in the picture hanging in his closet, but that was a purchase I made for my rifle.
Okay. But Colt had it in his closet.
In that picture, that's the first time I've seen it in his closet, yes.
Okay. And on that same date, you buy the Hornady, if I'm pronouncing that right, Custom 223 Remington 5.5.
Ammunition, yes, sir.
Okay. And that's found in Colt's bedroom.
That's, yes, where it ended up.
Okay. And that's all around this same time that the bull rushing is starting.
In that time frame, yes.
Okay. Now let's move to May of 2024. Tell me about Elite Pawn and Jewelry in Conyers. What is that?
Pawn shop and gun store.
Okay. And why do you go there?
I purchased 2 guns.
Okay. So the first one is on May 3rd. You buy a gun for $794.80.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's on May 3rd. You go back on May 10th and make another purchase of $449.34. That also a gun.
Yes, sir.
Okay. On May 17th, a week after that, you go back and you make two purchases, both of $52.95. What's that?
For $52?
And 95 cents. But it's two of those.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that was.
Okay. And then you go back the very next week and make another purchase for $52.95.
Okay,
Is that correct?
sounds like it.
So you're going on the 3rd, the 10th, the 17th, and the 24th.
Okay,
Basically same day every week.
yep,
Okay. And that's $1,400 in 1 month at Elite Pawn and Jewelry.
okay.
And they're all gun related?
Sounds like it, yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the $52 were.
Okay. And on the 31st of that month, you order the high-powered laser sights and accessory rail set from Amazon.
Correct.
And that's the one that's on Colt's rifle.
It's on his rifle and my rifle.
Okay, it's pieces that you put on different rifles.
Correct.
Okay.
Part of them went on mine, part of them went on his.
Okay. And then let's move on to June. So that was May 31st, so the last day of May. First day of June, June 1st, you order the bore sight 223 from Amazon.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, it's also sometime in early June that Colt throws this screwdriver at you. Correct?
Sounds like it, yes, sir.
And that was during a fight.
I was during an argument.
Okay. And he throws it at you. Must have been right around before June 7th because you make an email, text message about it on June 7th.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he's angry at you,
He's frustrated.
and he throws a screwdriver at you.
He threw it down the hall towards me.
Okay. Well,
I had my back totally towards him. Didn't even see him throw it.
okay. But he threw it at you. He was aiming for you.
I don't know who he was aiming for me. It ended up hitting me. You know, but I didn't physically stand there and see him aim for me.
All right. Well, let's talk about play the clip where you talk to Investigator Smith about it.
And
And Jenny described seeing him kick you, punch you, hit you,
that was the second time,
and that was how long ago?
probably a month and a half ago before he started back to school.
Yeah.
And that's when I pulled in every,
Did he ever throw anything at you?
say, hey, he threw a screwdriver at me.
What?
So at the beginning of that, he says, Jenny described seeing him kick you and punch you and hit you. And you said, that was the second time.
Right.
You didn't say that didn't happen.
What's that?
You didn't say that didn't happen. That he kicked you, punched you, and hit you.
Right, that was Jenny's statement.
And you said, yeah, that was the second time.
It meaning the hitting part.
Oh, okay. And then he threw the screwdriver at you.
He did throw that screwdriver, you know, down the hallway towards me.
All right. Well, let's look at the text message you sent to Colt about it on June 7th.
Mm-hmm.
And that's you. Hey, Bubba, hear what I'm saying right now, okay? What I'm about to ask you is not trying to start anything. Make sure you understand that, okay? Are you worried about his anger there?
I was worried about him taking it as far as he did, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, like, even with just sending him this text message, you seem like you're worried about him getting angry.
Yeah, I'm worried about, you know, we'd established a close bond at this point, and I thought that I'd created avenues for him to be able to come and talk to me before it got to this point.
Okay. And then the next one you say, okay, question I have is this. Did you tell Mamu that you had the screwdriver in your hand for self-defense?
Right,
Please tell me the truth, because we both know I wasn't even looking at you when you threw it at me.
right,
Okay. So he threw it at you.
right.
All right. So that's on the 7th. 3 days later on the 10th, you order him that tactical vest from Amazon.
Yes,
And Colt had asked you about that. Get it for him.
the tactical vest, yeah. He
See-
wanted,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, he wanted to use it. He saw people at the range using it. So he thought it looked neat and asked me to buy it for him.
Okay. And you ordered it to appease him.
I did.
Okay. And you told him you were getting it for him in a text message, didn't you?
I did.
All right, let's see that text message. And you say, yo, I got this for you, son, because I love you. And also, hopefully, you can work on being a little more patient.
Mm-hmm.
Colt, when it comes to you, and if you need something, if I can do it, I will do it. But if I cannot, then I cannot do it. And that's when I need you to be okay with it, knowing that as soon as I can, I will. At the end of the day, being disrespectful and flat out being mean and ugly doesn't do anything. So please, when you feel like you're getting angry or about to lose your temper, take a deep breath and then realize I'm going to make it happen at some point. Okay? I'm working hard for us. I do not want any more of that pushing, shoving, hitting anymore. We both deserve better than that. So here's the wind-up and the pitch. See you later, alligator. Love you.
Yes, sir.
And then that's the one where you talk about when you feel like getting angry and about to lose your temper. Do you get angry and lose his temper a lot?
Not a lot.
Okay. And you'd say don't want any more of that pushing, shoving, hitting.
Yes, sir.
So he's physically violent.
Not all the time, no, sir.
Well, I know he's not all the time, but there are times that he's physically violent.
3 times the pushing and shoving, three times that I remember.
And the throwing the screwdriver.
Correct.
Okay. And you also add in a screenshot of the tactical vest in this. Hold on, we have to pull it up.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's the one there.
Yes, sir.
And then he sends a photo of him in the vest.
Yep.
Now, on the 28th of June, you purchased a knife for Colt at Academy Sports.
That was a purchase for me.
For you.
Yes.
So, this knife,
Brown handle.
that's
Yes,
the
sir.
one, that's your knife.
I purchased that knife.
Where did you keep it?
I had it in my pocket sometimes, had it in my book bag at other times. Sometimes I forget to take it to work.
Okay. Was it accessible to Colt?
It may have been if I didn't have it on my person.
Okay. I mean, that's the one that was found in Colt's book bag at school, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I agree. I didn't know that he had taken that knife.
Okay. So you're not worried about Colt cutting himself anymore?
Again, that knife wasn't for Colt.
But it's in the house where he can get to it. You weren't worried about him cutting himself anymore?
Again, I didn't purchase that knife for Colt, and typically it was on my person.
Okay. So let's move on to July. That was June 28th. So let's move into the month of July. I think you were testifying earlier that Colt can be violent, but it's not all the time. Jenny sends you a text on July 3rd. And she says, hey, I think he calmed down.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, he doesn't calm down that quick. And Jenny, I can't live like this.
Right.
It's seriously not good.
Mm-hmm.
It tears me up. I just want him happy. And man, he calls me everything in the book.
Yes, sir.
How many good days is he having if you seriously can't live like this?
It's just that I couldn't reach him. You know, that was the part I was trying to, I guess, convey to Jenny is, you know, I wanted him to not get as upset as he would over silly things. So,
Does he have trouble calming himself down?
no, not typically. Even after one of our dust-ups, he would relatively calm down
Pretty
real
quick. Okay. Do you want to read your statement again?
Which part?
Where you say he doesn't calm down that quick?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take days or anything, you know, for him to calm down, but he doesn't calm down in 5 minutes either.
Now, Colt would chase Jenny around the house. Correct?
He chased her one time down the hallway. Yeah.
And that wasn't in a playful way, was it?
It started out as a playful kind of thing in the kitchen while Debbie and I were standing there talking.
So they're playing around in the kitchen,
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden Colt
yeah,
didn't play
Jenny.
anymore.
Yeah, Jenny did something. I don't know what exactly she did, but as soon as she did it, she took off down the hallway and he chased her.
In a violent way.
Oh, I don't know if it was violent. He just chased her down the hallway.
Well, do you think it was playful then, or did you think it was violent?
I think it was brother and sister kind of picking on each other.
Just brother and sister picking on each other.
Right.
And that's what you're testifying today.
Well, Debbie and I were standing there. I don't think either one of us thought it was a violent thing.
Okay. Well, you talked to Investigator Smith about it, didn't
Right.
you?
I did.
Let's play that clip. See if you thought it was violent then.
Told us about the incident where he chased her into his room and said it scared her.
It scared me.
Yeah, and you know that you and her have talked multiple times about getting him help,
Yep.
going back for a while.
I don't know for a while. You're asking time frames. I'm sorry, I couldn't just snap off with what these time frames are, but yes, there's like, there was no like blind eye here. We're trying,
Right.
He said she told us about the incident where he chased her into his room, and she said it scared her. And you said, yeah, it scared me.
Yeah, it scared me because when he got to the end of the hallway, he tripped and went headlong into the linen closet and put a hole in it with his head.
Okay. And then he put a hole in her door, trying to get into her door.
Not at that time. He got up and I think he was trying to pick the lock, I think is what she said he was doing.
Okay. But he put a hole in her door too.
Not at that point, I don't think so.
Okay. So he can go from being playful to chasing his daughter to the point it scares her, so his sister, it scares her and scares you like that.
Well, what scared me was him banging his head into the door.
That's not how you said it.
I said it scares me. Right. He never asked what scared me. I just told him it scared me. And I'm telling you what scared me was he tripped and went headlong into the door.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, so that was on the 3rd. You pick up Marcy on the 6th of July, correct?
Sounds accurate.
And she moves into your house,
Correct.
and you refer to her in your phone as my pretty.
Yeah, that's how I always talk to her.
Okay. And she talks to you about Colt while she's up there. Correct?
Okay, yes.
Y'all talk about Colt a lot.
We talk about all of our children a lot.
Okay. We specifically talk about Colt a lot.
I don't think any more than the others, but we do talk about Colt, yes.
You don't think you specifically talk about Colt any more than the other kids?
We
At
talk
this,
about,
at this time?
oh, I don't know about this time. We were talking about a lot of things at this time. If it was more about Colt, we probably had good reason to be talking more about Colt.
Yeah, I think y'all have pretty good reason to be talking about Colt. This is when he starts showing signs of depression, isn't it?
Maybe I'm not. I can't tell you I could look at somebody and see depression.
Well, you don't remember telling Investigator Smith that he suffered from depression for a while?
If I use the word depression, it was more just kind of really disappointment of what his mother had said and done leading up to,
So the word depression is being thrown around in your house in July.
It's just casual conversation, not being thrown around,
One of your children having depression is casual conversation?
we're talking about our children. I don't know how you want to quantify it, but, we're just talking about what's going on with all our kids.
All right, well, did you talk about Colt on July 20th when he had the panic attack at the house?
I did.
And you were there then, weren't you?
I believe I was, yes, sir.
And Colt wanted y'all to call 911.
Yeah, I never heard him state it to call 911. I wasn't in that living room at that time.
Okay. But he was acting bad.
Not bad. I
didn't mean mad. Bad.
Oh.
He was having a bad time of it.
That particular night, I came out of the shower I believe, and he was in the kitchen with Marcy in tears, yes, sir.
Okay. And y'all been talking about depression?
We've been talking a lot of things, not specifically only about depression,
Well,
but
I know you don't talk only about depression, but y'all have been talking about depression.
in conversation, yes, we've talked about depression, a lot of things.
And now he's crying, wanting to call 911, having a panic attack in your house.
Yeah, when I found him, he was crying. I didn't know it was a panic attack. I've never seen a panic attack, so
Okay.
at that
And-
point, I didn't know that's what
And there
it
was discussion about taking him to the doctor the next week,
I believe there was.
but y'all never took him to the doctor, did you?
No, Marcy took him in the bedroom and got him to calm down. I asked her what she thought it was. She had made mention of a panic attack. I think I said something along the lines, I've never seen one. So,
Okay. Did it scare you?
it scared me to the point where I've never seen him, cry really like that.
Okay. But you didn't take him to the doctor?
I did not, no, sir.
Okay. Now, 4 days later, that's when Marcy starts giving him Zoloft.
I'm not sure when she started giving him Zoloft,
Okay.
to be very honest with you.
Do you remember getting the text on July 24th where she texts you and says, I started Colt on Zoloft today. Don't say anything about it unless he brings it up?
I remember that text.
Okay. And now that's Marcy's prescription, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You didn't take him to the doctor?
I did not, no, sir.
Okay. And did you think he needed medicine?
I didn't think he needed medicine, no, sir.
Okay. Did you want to go to a doctor and see if she's giving him medicine? Don't you want to kind of talk to a doctor about that?
I didn't think that, I needed to take him, to a doctor.
Did you tell Marcy not to give him the Zoloft?
I did tell Marcy, the comment was, I think she had made mention of how she was divvying up her medicine. And when I asked her, like, well, how do you know what to give them? She said, I researched it, but then I talked to my doctor about what I was gonna do for Colt. That's kind of where we left it.
But you didn't stop her from giving him the Zoloft?
I did not stop her from giving him the Zoloft.
Don't you have full custody of those kids?
Oh, I do, yeah.
Isn't there a safety plan in place to protect them from Marcy?
I don't know if the safety plan was in place at that time, but there was one at a point, yes, sir.
And you decide who visits and when she visits and what contact she has with them, don't you?
I do.
Okay. And you didn't stop her from giving your son Zoloft?
I didn't stop her from giving him Zoloft, no, sir.
Okay. Now, you testified to some stuff about registering Colt. I think you said that you went up and met with the registrar, and they said don't start right away.
I think I
We have
talked
to
to
get
her.
his schedule under control or
I think I
something?
talked to her on the phone. I don't think I ever met with her face to face.
Oh, okay. Why is there no record of that in the school records?
I don't know.
You don't know. Didn't you hear Lisa Butler testify? You remember her testifying? And her saying that y'all came up on the 13th of August,
Right.
and she sat down with Colt and made a schedule for him.
We were talking about the schedule and when his start date was.
And that's on the 13th.
I believe so. It's been a minute.
Okay. So the first day of school was on the 1st.
Right.
Y'all actually, according to the school paperwork, you signed the registration papers on the 6th. Marcy finished them up on the 12th. And then you met with Lisa Butler on the 13th.
Right.
And Colt's first day was on the 14th.
The 14th.
So 2 weeks after school started.
Right.
Okay. Now, on August 11th, so August 6th is when he's registered for Apalachee. August 11th, Colt at 11:22 a.m. texts you to stop by Academy and pick up a 150 round pack of 5.56 or 223. Remember that?
Yep.
Okay. Why would Colt be asking you for ammunition?
The only reason we would be ever talking about ammunition is we had talked or were planning to go to the shooting range.
But didn't you say that you kept the ammunition away from Colt?
I did, in my closet up there with the weapons.
So how would he have any idea how much ammunition or if you needed any ammunition?
Because we had been shooting before, and I think with the holiday weekend coming up, we had talked about going to the range, and he knew what kind of ammunition.
When did you last go to the range?
I'm not sure at that point.
Because the last record we have would have been in 2023.
And what range?
Let me see. No, it's 24. March of 24.
What range?
I think it's the Wilson Shoals.
Is that the only record you have?
Yeah. Of you taking the kids?
Yeah, go to the range.
Yeah.
That's it?
That's all we got.
Okay. Well, there was another range, Charlie Elliott,
I saw your name
at
in
Charlie
that one,
Elliott.
but not the kids.
Right, Colt. Never took Jenny to that range, but Colt and I did attend Charlie Elliott shooting range.
Why wouldn't Colt's name be on the register?
I don't know.
Okay. And when was that?
I'm not sure when that time frame was.
Okay.
We did attend Charlie Elliott a couple times though.
Okay. So on August 11th, the Colt asked you for a 150 round pack of 5.56 or 223.
Sounds like it, yes, sir.
Did he say what he wanted it for?
He did.
Okay. Did his request raise any alarms with you?
No, because we had made mention of the holiday weekend coming up.
Okay. And was he still being physically violent at this time?
Physically, I can't remember when the last time we were physical with each other, but we were having disagreements here and there, but it wasn't a ongoing thing.
Okay. Do you remember talking to Jason Smith on the 5th, and you said this was probably about 3 weeks ago. We had an argument or whatnot, and I was like, where I would get a fuck you and a slam the door kind of shit.
Mhm.
He just wouldn't let it, like he wouldn't let it go. It just seemed like he was wanting to, instead of back off a fight, like he was really wanting to fight.
That's what I told Smith.
On the 5th, and you said it was probably about 3 weeks ago, which would put it around August 11th time.
Yeah, and I think I told Smith too. And these days after, the day after and day after talking to Smith, there was a lot going on. I was not.
Well, I know, I'm not holding you to a specific date on that kind of stuff, but
I'm
you
just
said
saying.
about 3 weeks before, and that would be around this time period. Okay, correct?
Correct?
Okay, and he's asking you for 150 rounds of ammunition, and he's still in that wanting to fight you.
Not every day, no, sir.
Well, of course not every day. Let's go to the 13th. That's the day you went to Apalachee to get Colt's schedule we already talked about, and you met with Lisa Butler,
Right?
and she introduced yourself as the school counselor.
She did.
Okay. And you said nothing to her about Colt needing counseling.
I did not at that point, I don't think.
Okay. So the next day is the 14th.
We also had a school tour.
Yeah, she talked about that. On the 14th is Colt's first day of school.
Correct.
And he had already missed the first 2 weeks of school.
Correct.
And he did not want to go, did he?
I think his comment to me was he was scared. He was
Yeah.
a little nervous.
Okay. And he made threats of violence that morning before school to you in 2 texts, didn't he?
I need to see the text. I'm not sure what you're talking
All right,
about.
let's pull them up.
Yeah.
Those?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sick of your shit. This is the fucking end for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's more.
Yeah, I know.
No more apologies. You have fucking I fucking had it with you.
Mm-hmm.
The way you twist shit is so old. I have no idea what ATP means.
Me either.
Okay. But I've been told it means at this point.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And then you fucking caused this.
Okay.
No mention of Marcy. Whenever something happens, just know the blood is on your hands. Fuck you.
Correct.
And this is at 6:49 through 6:51 a.m. before Colt goes to school.
Yep.
And that's his first day of attending school since May 21st, 2023,
Yep.
when Jackson County came to your door about threats to shoot up a school.
Yes, sir.
Did those texts alarm you?
They did, but I kind of knew what they were about.
I think you testified about, you kind of knew what they were about?
Yeah.
You're just guessing? Does Colt still have the rifle in his room at this time?
I'm not aware of the rifle maybe being in his room at that time.
Okay. Well, let's see, look at this picture we have. That was modified on August 3rd. That's Colt's room, isn't it?
That is his room.
And that's the tactical vest you ordered for him.
Correct.
Now, you took Colt to school that morning, didn't you?
I believe I did on his first day. I can't really remember.
But you did not go inside and tell anyone about those texts?
I did not. And I wasn't aware of that picture either.
I understand. But the rifle is in his room, isn't it?
In that picture, it is. I don't know when it was taken. I don't know where I was.
Well, sometime after he dyed his hair
Yep.
and before August 3rd.
In that time frame, I don't know where I was, what time it was. I had no idea that picture existed till I saw it the other day sitting in his courtroom.
And now, at this time, you and Marcy had been talking about Colt needing serious psychological help, weren't you?
Marcy was bringing that up. Yes, sir.
Okay. And she was telling you, y'all discussed inpatient treatment for him.
She did.
She did, not you.
Yes, I didn't believe he needed inpatient treatment at that point.
All right. And you actually talked to Investigator Smith, and he says, have you been in communication with Marcy about any kind of stuff for him, any kind of like mental health? And you said, yeah, her and I talked about that. And she was like, he needs help at another level. And Smith asked, what does she mean by that? And you say, she means like checked into a place.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, when does she make that comment? And you say, recently, while this has been going on. So she's telling you Colt needs to be checked into a place.
She is.
Okay. Now the next day, on August 15th, so this was his first day of school where he says the blood will be on your hands. And now we moved on to the next day, Colt skipped school, correct?
I was told, I think by Colt, I'm in school.
But he what?
I found out later that he was not.
So he skipped school his second day.
Yep. I received a text, I believe, from him, said he was at school. I texted him and asked, did you go to school? He said yes. And I think I said, have a good day, I'm proud of you.
Okay. And him and Marcy had a physical confrontation.
And what was that date?
August 15th.
Yeah, that's
It's a
the
Thursday.
day. That's the day they had the issue.
Okay. And the issue was about the gun in his room.
No. Originally, I thought the issue was about Colt made mention to me that she was either drunk or high.
Okay. That's Colt's version.
That's Colt telling me in the very beginning.
Okay. But she told you that it was about the gun in his room, and she wanted it put away and out of the house.
That she was actually in the house, that staying with us. I thought that he had went to school. Text, as stated, she did not even know that he had not left the house and went to school. So the version I got from her was, yes, he and I had an argument, I think is how she posed that, and then somehow she said something about the gun and Colt not wanting to give it to her or something. I'm not sure exactly how that story went.
Okay. Do you remember telling Investigator Smith that she said something about the way you're acting? I'm going to talk to your daddy, and we're going to have to take these guns and get them out of the house. And what she said is he flew off the bed. She said she went down in there and said, you need to get your shit straight, go to school, and we need to just get these guns put up. And that's when they went from bad to worse. And she said she was going out of his bedroom and he pushed her and she hit the door of the wall and the side of her head, and it's like, okay, I'm on the way home. You remember telling Investigator Smith that?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. So she's telling you that she wanted the guns out of the house. He loses his mind, flies off the bed at her, and pushes her, and she hits her head. That's what you're being told by her.
That's her version of it, yes, sir.
Okay. And Colt texts you at 11:04 that a.m. and tells you about that. Correct?
Part of it, yes, sir.
So let's pull up the mom. Okay, so at 11:04, he's texting you, Mama just attacked me.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then tried to grab my gun.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's kind of accurate what she was saying.
No, she was saying that he had his gun or was doing something with his gun, and his version of it was he was nowhere near his gun. It was just sitting in the corner of his room, and she came in and went for it, is what he said for me.
But it was an argument about his gun.
I think it was an argument about school, his attitude, not wanting to go, just a kind of a rift that they had always had, to be honest with you.
Okay. But this is an argument involving the gun.
Yeah, this is the first time, to my knowledge, that we had ever had any issue with a gun being in our house. Nobody ever went for a gun, used it aggressively, or even in our arguments Colt and I had, the gun was never, ever touched, made reference to. The first time the gun ever was involved was when Marcy went for it, according to Colt.
So never, 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 ever, ever, never until this day.
As far as in an aggressive or negative manner.
Okay. And this is the day after he made that text about the blood being on your hands.
Right, and I think I stated, I took that blood on your hands as he thought that his mama may go through with the threat to kill him.
Okay.
That's how I read that text. That's how I took it. in
You
the
took it
argument.
that he's scared of his mother killing him.
Whatever they were arguing about, I don't think he ever got over that statement that she made.
That's not in any of his texts to you.
No, it's not. And
You just thought that.
that's just how I perceive that.
Okay. So you're going through this month thinking in your head, Colt's terrified of his mother killing him.
Not terrified. I just think that he had that thought in the back of his head.
Okay. And this is the woman you went and picked up and brought back to your house to live with Colt.
This is the woman I went and picked up after we went several family visits, Colt and I, to rehab to see that she was doing better. Had earned her chip, and I was told that she was to a point where she could be released and that she had permission and her parents were on board, so I went and got her.
Well, what about Colt?
Colt was on board. He went down there for family days with me.
I thought you just said that you were worried that Colt was afraid she'd kill him.
In that argument,
So you have a child that's afraid of their parent killing them, and you're going to bring her into your house?
not afraid of killing him, I'm just saying he always had that, we both had that thought,
Okay. Well, let's see the text that he sent. This is at 1:52. Do this. So Colt texted you, she was grabbing for my rifle. I didn't know what she planned to do with it, so I kind of acted in flight or fight. Correct?
Yep,
Okay. Sorry, I got ahead.
that's okay. I know what's coming. Yes, sir.
And you said it's all good. Why was the gun involved?
Yes, sir.
I mean, that kind of disturbs you that there's a gun involved in this, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the first time that a gun was, involved in any kind of argument or altercation.
Okay. And he writes, I don't know, she backed me into my room and started talking about, oh, you're going to get your gun, even though I wasn't, and then she grabbed it.
Yes, sir.
So the gun is in his room.
It was on that day.
Okay. And it was after that day, that she asked you to get rid of the guns.
She asked me to put the guns up.
And you agreed that you would do that.
Yep, put them up where they normally are up, and there's not been an issue.
And you didn't do any of that
I did. I put them all back up in my closet,
in your closet.
in that top shelf
Okay.
where they've sat.
And so I think you talked to Smith. What did Marcy ask you about the guns? What did she say to you about the guns? And you said, she just said after the confrontation she had with Colt, she was like, you just need to put them up or get rid of them. And I said, okay. And he says, did you put them up or get rid of them? And you said, they're up. And I didn't. My thought was, I'm going to have a conversation with Colt about this. So putting them up for you is in an unlocked closet
Yes, sir.
on a shelf.
Yes, sir.
And you're not home during the day.
Not home during the day.
Colt is.
He was.
And you didn't do anything else to make the guns more secure from Colt.
No, sir. To that point, I didn't. There was no perceived threat from Colt.
Okay. In fact, later the same day, at 3:48, Colt texts you, asks you to buy the Apalachee bore sight with the red laser bore sight and 3 sets of batteries from Amazon. He says, could you please buy this?
Correct. That was in reference to us going the following weekend to the range.
Okay. And you ordered it for him the very next morning.
For him and myself.
Okay.
That was a accessory we both used on our rifles.
The morning after he had a physical confrontation with your wife holding the gun.
He wasn't holding the gun. She was.
That's not what
She
said.
Well, I'm sure that's what she said, but he told me she went for the gun. So I put him up.
So the 16th, you order him the Apalachee bore sight at 6:25, and at 8:57, Colt sends you a text. They also talked about the holes in the door, and that's referring to the holes Colt put in the 2 doors, correct?
Yeah, the one headbutt where it tripped, I think, was an accidental thing. I don't think he was doing that on purpose. In fact, I know he wasn't.
Okay. So this isn't the first house Colt has put holes in, is it? Didn't he put a hole in the house in Jefferson in 2022?
I don't know if I'm aware of a hole he put in the wall.
Okay, and of course he broke the window down in Fitzgerald.
Yeah, he slammed the door and broke a pane. He just cracked it. It really.
And at 9 a.m. he sends you the text. Got that? Sends you this text. I am restraining myself as for what I feel like doing right now. I have barely any control over. So he's telling you he's losing control over himself, isn't he?
I wasn't sure what was happening with him at that moment. I was not there.
Okay. So that's the day that Marcy leaves and goes back to Fitzgerald.
So that's the day we all thought he was in school. Marcy was in the house, didn't know he went to school. Debbie, Charlie, everybody comes up.
Yep.
He's hiding in the closet.
Right.
And I later learned what those texts were about. He was sitting there listening to the conversations going on in the house.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when they go to leave, he comes flying out of the house and has a violent outburst with them.
I heard multiple stories of what happened.
Okay.
I heard Colt and I heard Marcy's version of it.
Okay. That would have been his second violent outburst in 2 days.
According to Marcy.
Okay. And when Marcy and Charlie and Debbie leave, they come to your work.
They
meet
do.
you there.
They come to the Rockdale Fire Station on the building.
Where you were, and they meet you.
Correct.
And they tell you about what Colt had done, come flying out, threatening to kill them, and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, she didn't necessarily, I don't think she mentioned the word kill or anything like that. She said that they were taken back didn't know that he was in the house till he showed up at the door, and I think he was cursing at Charlie about being in our house.
Did Debbie talk to you about those awful emails that we went over in court that day that she got from Colt?
Do you have them?
I don't have them with me, but do you remember when she testified all about the fuck you and your God and all that, hope you all die?
Oh, to
To
Debbie?
Debbie.
I remember,
And that was in the aftermath of this, wasn't it?
I believe it was.
And did you see those? Did they talk to you about that?
I don't think Debbie talked to me about those emails at all.
Okay. Well, when they come meet with you, do they tell you about Colt acting this way?
What they had told me was he came to the door, surprised everybody, and was pissed off about Charlie being in the house, and Mamu talking about calling defects on me.
Well, let me ask you this. What they described to you of how Colt was acting, did it disturb you?
I wasn't surprised he was mad. I wasn't surprised at that. I was actually mad that what was happening inside of the house. I was also upset that he had lied about going to school again. So there were multiple things I was upset about, actually. But what he was telling me was going on being said in the house, I was upset. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let's talk about specifically your thoughts about Colt.
Okay.
As they're talking to you at this fire station that you're working at, does it worry you, what they're describing, does it worry you about Colt, about how he is in his emotional state?
It didn't worry me to the point because I knew he was pissed about Charlie, because Charlie had threatened and had called the police on him prior down in Fitzgerald. They did not like each other and had multiple run-ins.
Okay. So your testimony today is that you were not worried about Colt being like a troubled teen or upset or anything like that?
Well, I was concerned about him being upset for sure. I was concerned about him not being in school again. So yeah, to say I was not concerned, no, I was concerned.
Okay. But you were worried about Colt's emotional state at this point, based on what they told you?
I was worried about him being upset again after I've worked really hard to kind of keep things calm, and upset about him not being in school.
Okay. And they gave you the Zoloft for Colt to keep giving him the Zoloft, didn't they?
Yes, she gave me a Ziploc bag of broken up little pills. I wasn't sure what they were at the time.
Okay, so I want to pull up a text that Debbie sent to Colt. I think it's already in evidence at 10:21 a.m.
Let's actually come back to that. I think we indicated yours, Greg.
Okay.
Go ahead and take 10. All right. Be in a short recess.